lot of times when people think of Hawaii, they think about the blue oceans, they think about hula skirts, they think about the aloha spirit, everybody's smiling. Just in Hawaii in general, our entire state, we tie with New York for having the most homeless per capita. My name is Abigail Eli, and I am the senior pastor of Waianae Assembly of God. I'm also the executive director of our nonprofit, Makaha Community Center. So I was born and raised in Waianae, Hawaii. So I've lived here my entire life. And I thank God for that because anyone who knows what Waianae is like, we know that it has a culture of its own. There's a tough living environment around us for sure. So I grew up fighting boys on the streets, jumping off of roofs, climbing trees, biking and ramping. It's like that was in Waianae, it's considered more of the country. But as I grew up in the schools here, it was very, very quickly understood that I was living in an environment with a lot of violence. I also had a lot of friends that were in the foster care system. And unfortunately, I didn't know what to do about it at that time, but they would tell me their stories, and many of them were being physically abused and they were being sexually abused. And I heard the stories so often that I remember making a decision at that time that one day I was going to become a foster parent. And one day I was going to take care of kids just like that and make sure that they were going to stay safe. Now, I had no idea that I was going to have the life that I'm leading now to the extent that I'm living it. So about 5 years ago, God called me and asked me to go live with the homeless at Pu'uhonua o Waianae, which is located at the Waianae Boat Harbor. And I didn't know why. I asked him why. I never got an answer. So I just thought, well, maybe I'm just supposed to learn something. So I asked my husband first, and he said, okay. But then I asked my kids. I had 12 kids at the time. I didn't want them to feel forced to go. So I asked them if they would voluntarily come with me. I was going to stay there for at least a month. I said, we're never going to know how to really help if we don't walk in their shoes. But they all decided to go. My oldest was about 15. My youngest was 3 years old. And so they all said they wanted to go. I said, you're sure, right? No electricity, no water, and you're not going to have your beloved AC in your rooms in the summer heat. And they said, yes, we want to go. So we went. We asked the village if we could come and stay with them. There's about 300 in that village, and I never told them I was a pastor. I didn't tell them that I was a Christian. I just asked, can we come and live with you? And they said, yeah, come. My kids and I loved it so much that nobody wanted to leave. So we wound up staying there. We saw more miracles than I could even begin to even tell. It was just such an amazing experience. We saw people who were hungry for God, that just every day, all night and day, people were coming to us for ministry, which I thought was amazing because, like I said, I never said I was a pastor, never said I was a Christian, but so many people recognized the love of God. And I remember really struggling because I knew the time was coming that I was going to have to leave, and I really didn't want to leave. So I went to what I call my grand cathedral, which was me praying on the reef at the open heavens. I would go every single night. I'd go from 10 o'clock, and God's presence would come so thick that I often couldn't get back to my campsite till 2 in the morning. But eventually it's coming to the end, and I'm out there at 10 o'clock asking God, can I stay? Can I stay? I love it here. Like, God, can I sell my house and move in permanently with everyone here? God gently spoke to me and he said, Abby, it's time for you to go home now. I need you to talk to my children. And he showed me this vision that I would be speaking in different churches and I would be sharing his heart. And I remember being on that reef And I remember just saying, maybe it's not the best answer, but it was, this is just how I talk to God. I remember looking up at heaven and saying, that's the last place I want to be. I was so tired of being in churches where people think that the greatest thing to do is just to come to service. And God just simply said to me, Abby, I just need you to trust me. And so I knew the answer was no, even though I didn't understand the why, and I had to pack everybody up. And when I arrived back at my home, I remember pulling up to our yard, and I couldn't even go in my home. I was so broken that I remember running to the park and just bawling, just crying my eyes out. It just took so long for me to adjust to being back at home. Every time I woke up in the middle of the night and I could just go around the corner and there's my bathroom, I felt such a pain. When I walked to my kitchen and I put my cup to the refrigerator and I could put ice and water, just so instantly have a cold drink. Again, just a pain, just thinking of all my friends. And every time the storms came, the massive rain and the wind and every hurricane warning that there ever was, all I could think of was these people that I fell in love with. Today, years later, I get it. If I had stayed, I would have only ministered to one village. Today, I minister to well over 5,000 people and over 15 different villages that are living in poverty, transitional shelters, low-income housing, a variety of homeless encampments, and those who are living homeless in different situations. And so my life is extremely busy. Years ago when I had 9 children, so I now have over 23 to say up to 30 kids in my home at any given time. We just have so many children. Because after that experience with living in the homeless encampment, we recognized one outstanding factor. A majority of the adults that lived in the encampment never graduated from high school. And every kid that was in that encampment from 17 years old and down, they didn't know multiplication facts. What was really heartwarming for me that helped me to adjust with returning home is that these kids started walking to my home. They walked 2 miles to my home every day, and then they would walk back to the encampment. Eventually, some of those came to actually stay with me. But I remember thinking, doing nothing is not an option. When I saw these kids going to school, they were so badly bullied in the elementary that by the time they got to intermediate, they didn't have the nice clothes, they didn't have the nice shoes, they were recognized as being homeless, so they were so extremely bullied that they didn't like being there. On top of that, they didn't have anybody helping them with education at home. So they were failing, massively failing. So why would they want to go to school? Generational poverty was being forced upon them. So when I got home, I said, I've got to do something to help these kids. And so we took our couches and we removed them from our home and we lined both sides of the walls with desks. And we bought old computers and we started tutoring. And after that, we started getting calls from people all over asking us to pick up donations. So we started investing and getting items for all those who are in poverty. And that was a challenge in trusting God for the gas money and the time and everything. But let's just say that God did some amazing things. So we started doing that. And so now 5 years later, we have these 20-something kids. 9 are legally mine, so 7 are biologically mine, 2 are adopted, and the rest are what we call in Hawaii hanaid, which is a Hawaiian word for like adoption but not legally, and we just take them in as family.
At the average kind of like I'm basically a soul she saved, but not her. It was just God using her to get to me, and uh, I mean There's honestly no words that can explain how much I'm grateful for everything she's done for me, my two sisters, my mom and dad, my family, stuff like that. Not just them too. I feel like the church had a big impact when we first started coming too. So I mean, Auntie Abby was there most of the time, but it was the church had a part in changing our lives for the better.
What Auntie Abby them did for me and my siblings, it kind of made me the person that I am today, because I only started living with them a year ago again, because I left to go to my mom's house and I was doing really bad over there. So I think being around Auntie Abby them and just like positive people, I think that's what like brings me to where I am now. And I admire Auntie Abby and Hilton really much. Yeah. I really do love them.
When I went into the encampment, people said, "Are you crazy? Are you crazy? You're gonna take your kids to go live in a homeless encampment? You're gonna have them sleep on the ground when they could sleep in beds?" I went to my knees and I said, "God, give me your perspective. If someone steals from me, then it's fine. God's the provider, and it's just material things." I said, if somebody, physically abuses one of us, I know the healer of the body. If somebody sexually abuses one of us, I know the healer of the soul. And if I die, I win. I go from this world into a better world. When you get to the place where you live dead already, it's like there's nothing in this world that can shake you from going out. Half the time, the reason why people don't want to go and minister on the streets, that they're afraid to go up to someone in the store and tell them about Jesus or just obey God, is because they're afraid of being rejected. Not killed, just rejected, just made fun of or yelled at or looked at in a harsh way. And I was like, well, what does that affect? Just your pride. Well, good, because that should be dead anyway. So let's go. My heart drops because I cannot imagine not doing something. There are millions around us dying every day, and their eternity, that's forever. And I think, oh God, I can't do anything for that person. I don't have any more time to do anything for that person. But then the second thought is, as I look around at all the people that are driving past me and they're on their cell phone or they're talking on the sidewalks, they're at the beaches and they're drinking and they're just doing their thing, it's like, I'm totally oblivious to God, not even thinking about God. But my second thought after that is like, I still have time to get to them. Thank you, God, I've got to get to them. I don't have time to just sit around and watch TV. I don't even know how Christians have the kind of time to just sit around and do absolutely nothing. I just don't have that mindset anymore. I've been very challenged by the things that I've seen, and it moves me. It moves me to do something about it, whatever I can. I've got to do something, and I've got to do it every day. A lot of times when people think of Hawaii, they think about the blue oceans, they think about hula skirts, they think about the aloha spirit, everybody's smiling. The sad part is, most of those who are homeless are of Native Hawaiian descent. We need Jesus here in Hawaii.